the invitation and thanks for the kind words. And the book is open access, so if you want to follow it up, just download it and check it out. I mean, it was a project that was meant to be open access from the start, and we were able to do it. So finally, I mean, I can send the PDF of the book or have it downloaded without painful prices of publisher, like crazy things that only libraries can actually afford. But this one, you know. But anyway, thanks for, you know, it's so great to be here. I've been, as I was telling Carolina, I was in Warwick University 2 times, but never physically, never here really. Everything online. It was through COVID and whatever, with different schools, different faculties. So yeah, it feels good to take a train and even to face the challenges of the obstacles of the system. But finally to be here and having the room full of interesting people. And I'm gonna talk about a project that it's completely developed together with my friend and co-author Tiziano Bonini from the University of Siena. We've been thinking about this together, we've been writing this together, not just the book, several articles have come out of that and chapters and other things, reports and, you know, the usual things when you have a project in your hands. And so I call these the Algorithmic tour because we have different places all over the world where we are presenting this. And it's a bit of a strange thing to present a book when you have finished it, because you don't want to hear about the book anymore. You know, it's just, at least for me, anytime it's like, I want to move on. In fact, I have moved on in a way. I'm writing the next one, like just in Italian, for the first time in my life, writing something straight into Italian. A new project, I'm like, yeah, the book is gone. I've done the research. I proposed it to the publisher. I've written it, and it's out in the world. Let people read it, but I don't want to hear about it anymore. I mean, it's just like, but having said that, now that we're doing it, it's also nice because I feel that it's, you know, and it's so, when you write a book, like 5 years, it's a lot of data into it. It's a lot of things that goes theoretical, conceptual framework and all of that. And you could talk for this for hours. In fact, what I usually do is just I take section of it and I present like pieces of that. I'm trying to give in this a bit of a more kind of a bigger eagle eye overview of this, and hopefully, you know, there are so many authors that have inspired us. So this is the result of me meeting Tiziano in Siena, like in 2019. He coming from a background in cultural studies and looking at algorithms in Spotify and other kind of, let's say, the cultural sector, and myself coming from, you know, a lot of years of doing research, especially in Latin America, on digital activism and, you know, digital activism and algorithms and how they change the whole scenario. And so we met and we say, well, let's do something together that bridges this, and let's add something more. And so this is the result of an intellectual journey, because, you know, we have engaged with what, you know, the authors that have somehow influenced and impacted our work throughout these years, which are many. And this is just a glimpse of that, just a screenshot to give you an idea of some of our. And of course, you know, being us Italian, there's a lot of reference to classic of our tradition, you know, just like Alessandro Manzoni, the classic. I didn't know it was called the Betrothed, which is the worst title. I mean, it's just I Promessi Sposi. I mean, it just sounds different, but it's a masterpiece. You know, I used to hate it back in school, but yeah, I mean, now we can see a lot of connection. So we rely also on Honoré de Balzac, Manzoni, a lot of sci-fi, because we are both sci-fi nerds in a way. So there's a lot of reference to actual sci-fi and William Gibson, a lot of, you know, these kind of things that makes the book more also, you know, easier to understand for the general public if there's this kind of anchoring. And then, of course, one big inspiration was Snowpiercer for the class divide and all the interesting stuff that goes on in this TV series that is based also on a fantastic movie, sci-fi movie from the Korean director. Well, Dune, another classic, well before, and we could talk about that for hours as well, another resistance tale of our time, a movie like Elysium. So we try to blend in everything, just everything to explain what is it that we were seeing, what our data was telling us, as you say. And in terms of contribution of the book, we think that there are like a lot of different strands of literature, of fields, aerial research, whatever you want to call them. So of course there is the more traditional digital media studies kind of one, but then of course platform studies, critical data studies and algorithm studies. I will say also, I will add AI to the mix. Digital labor, it's a big thing that we contribute to. Cultural study more in general, and of course all the part about social movement, activism, and collective action. But also, first time that I really engage more seriously and more substantially with resistance studies, because of course, algorithm of resistance, there's a lot of engagement with resistance studies of the last, let's say, 15 years. So that's to give you a bit of a conceptual mapping of what we situate ourselves within, okay? What we do here, we shift the focus. We shift the focus to the practices and tactics by people to cope and live with algorithmic power. And this is in response to what we perceived as monolithic accounts of power. Kind of incredibly great kind of analysis based on political economy mostly, of what is going on, but that leave really agency and resistance unattended. And so we decided to take that seriously, but at the same time shift the focus a bit to the people engaging, different kind of social actors engaging with this. So the book explores algorithmic agency and resistance across gig work, precarious work, culture, and politics. These three realms encapsulate what we look. I am a bit obsessed with the number 3, but that I can come back to that later on. So the book sheds light on how gig workers, content creators, and activists are developing these tactics of algorithmic resistance, appropriating, repurposing algorithms that are controlling their lives. In doing so, we reveal form of agency and resistance, and the whole book could be summed like that. These are not forms of resistance that are kind of weird, out there, strange kind of things. They are endemic, they are here to stay, they are mundane, they are banal, in a way. They are everywhere, they are pervasive, just like the algorithms. They are everywhere. It's in our everyday life. So that's where cultural studies, above all, kind of step in. This is not some kind of strange resistance to that. This is the most ubiquitous form of resistance now, because algorithms are spread exactly everywhere, almost everywhere. So the platform society is a contested battleground of these contrasting forces that we map out in the book. So that's what we do. Methodologically, to give you an idea of the kind of data sets that we have used, the really, kind of project was focused on gig economy because we didn't have a lot of data on that. So we have, the Algorest project was focused on multi-method, 68 interviews with food delivery. So we got Italy in the mix, we got Mexico, we got China, we got India, we got Spain. So we got plenty, as usual, we have always done multi-sited research, and this is an example of that, a lot of global south in it. Plus participant observation, long extended period, especially during COVID. Don't get me started on that. We all know what it was. It was painful. Also to do research, of course, a lot of methodological innovation went into that. So we had WhatsApp group, WeChat groups, the riders, screenshot of everything that was going on in terms of in the fieldwork, conversation, participant observation, so hybrid research online and offline in terms of cultural consumption, interviews well. Instagram, it's a multi-platform work because it's multi-sited. It's everywhere in the world, but not everywhere, but in many places. And at the same time, it's in many platforms because this is where they spread, this is where they act. And other participant observation. In terms of the political activism part, which is the third realm, a lot of interviews that I did follow-ups, and at the same time I had other reviews analyzed with key media activist, organizer, and practitioner in Global North and the South, and my ethnographic research in Latin America especially. I was a professor in Mexico for 5 years, but then I did research also in Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil. So that's a bit of the methodological kind of backbone of and of course there's more in the methodological appendix of the book if you want to sink your teeth into that. Of course, ethical challenging comes with that because, we have a forthcoming chapter reflecting on those. What about all the ethical challenges of doing research in private online environments without harming workers or treating them as just object to extract data from? We rely on these do not harm in private chat apps kind of model from Barbosa and Milan, but we extend that to other reflection in the method that will deserve some kind of reflection on its own. But I want you to just take a look at that to know that that's also another substantial thing that we have reflected upon. Core concept. So in terms of theoretical, after the methodological, there's a lot of reflection on agency, and just to sum it up, we draw a lot on Giddens and Coldry and Neff and Nagy. On Giddens for ability of human beings to make a difference, to exercise some sort of power. Coldry, longer processes of action based on reflection, making sense of the world so as to act within it. And on Neff Nagy for the symbiotic agency part. So this is co-constituted in complex interaction between society of technologies. That doesn't come as something new for you, of course. So we try to merge a bit this to come up with our own understanding of algorithmic agency. Algorithmic agency, so of course, agency and infrastructures, they mutually shape each other. But we conceive this, the infrastructure, as Giddens conceives structure. So they're both the medium and the outcome of the conduct it recursively organizes. So we define algorithmic agency as the reflexive ability of human beings to exercise power over the outcomes of an algorithm. And with this kind of working definition that was always tried with data and all stuff, we just started to do the fieldwork and kind of came back to that most of the time, right? So that's an interesting definition. And however, the agency is symbiotically embedded in the environment in which it is exercised. So the people exercise the agency while acting upon certain algorithmic outputs and at the same time by reacting to them, okay? This symbiotic relationship happens within the boundaries and the affordances of the structures, of these architectures, of course, mutual shaping within this. Symbiotic approach that highlights this complex entanglement, which is also another concept that is brought to the fore, between human agency and artificial intelligence. So, we are constrained by it, but there is some sort of, and we, of course, we have worked on the concept of affordances. So that, but just to cut it with an X, just so you know that algorithmic agency is one of the main component of the theoretical framework. But agency is not resistance, according to us at least, The manifestation of agency that we describe in the book, they move along a continuum. Being sociologists, both of us, we love continua, very much, for complexity. And so this continuum goes from forms of agency openly resisting platform power to other forms of agency that have no intention whatsoever of questioning or challenging such power. And to do that, and to conceptualize resistance, we turn to resistance studies, and especially to this author, that are also reading the work of Foucault and kind of, adding some bits in there. We find them highly useful. So we come up with a definition of algorithmic resistance as an act performed by someone upholding a subaltern position or someone acting on behalf of and or in solidarity with someone in a subaltern position, and most often responding to power through algorithmic tactics and devices. So this is our engagement with resistance studies. First we tackle agency and then resistance. And of course the book is a kind of a response to Algorithmic of Oppression by Sophia Noble that kind of illuminated the part about how algorithms can be a source of domination and oppression, and we do the other bit in a way. But we complement that. It's like two faces of the same coin. All right. Plus, to complicate things, because we like to complicate things a lot, but also because the data tell you, they're telling you one story and you need to listen and revise again and again. We draw on moral economy and Desserteau. We had both of us, we had drawn a lot on Desserteau, but moral economies was an introduction especially by Tiziano, that was really engaged with that, and we combined both of them. In terms of the moral economy, classic Thompson study of the 70s, and Scott, both in the 70s, the moral economy of the peasant and the moral economy on the English crowd in the 18th century, too classic. How can we read this, applying it to the platform society? I mean, what does it have to do with that? Well, a specific set of moral values shape individuals' view of the economy. And all economies are moral economies. They are suffused with values, they're suffused with beliefs about what constitutes proper activity regarding rights and responsibilities. So we apply this conception to the analysis in our book. And so Thompson argued that human agency can be influenced by different economies, moral economies. And it's important to distinguish between them because it helps to understand the different reasons and the values that drive human agency. And this is what we do in the book. We distinguish the various forms of human agency in coping with algorithms, what we have called algorithmic agency. You just saw it, along this continuum shaped by moral values that sees on one side, the competing two competing moral economy. On one side, the platform moral economy, and on the other, the user moral economy, with a lot of different spaces in between, because of course it's not a radical, polarized vision. And the user moral economy is usually centered on different kind of values: social, collectivist values, mutual support, cooperation between users, political awareness, struggle in the organization, and a deep sense of solidarity, which has been called also by other authors entrepreneurial solidarity. Support, cooperation, you get the ethos of this. On the other side, we got platform moral economies. That's neoliberal values, the epitome of neoliberal values, of course. Free market, individualism, consumerism, extractivism. The optimization is another big term for that. Self-entrepreneurship, meritocracy, authentic, as in authentic, competition, and the co-op values. So, of course, everything that I'm telling you, in the book is much more kind of nuanced in many ways, but that gives you an idea of the different sets of values that are operational here. So that's a graphic manifestation of that. So we got manifestation of algorithmic agencies not aligned to the platform moral economy. Then we got the one that are aligned to the platform moral economy. That's just the start of our model, right? That emerged from the data that is going to be populated real soon. So don't worry about that, just a glimpse of this. And of course, if the English peasant, just to give you kind of historical anchoring of the 18th century, rioted in the name of the unfair price of bread. This is where the Promessi Sposi steps in, the famous riots for the bread. According to a moral vision of the economy, users of the platforms riot or resist it in the name of the unfair distribution of online visibility, which is the new kind of issue in the platform society, or in the name of better structural job condition in the gig economy. So they fight against precarization, they fight against casualization and the decent living wages, But that's according to a moral vision. In fact, many of the interviews of the text that we analyzed showed these moral stances towards in all the three different social domains that we analyzed, okay? And of course, we've been influenced by the best TV series of all time, which is The Wire, especially by, may he rest in peace, Omar Coming, what may seem from the outside, from those who make the rules of the game, as irrational and immoral is for those trapped in the system, the only way to weigh up good and bad in the settings in which they find themselves. In other kind of lectures where I focus on the moral economy side, we show also the part where Omar have this fantastic talk in front of the jury about the rules of the game and the different kind of moral economies involved in that. But we find that it's really great to also connect to this, which, of course, that was a series built and written by a sociologist. It says a lot about that. And of course, the other axis, we got the moral economies, strategies versus tactics. Classic. The strategy is the purview of power. And the tactics, the purview of the non-powerful. What a great, this book continues to inspire us, over and over again, of course, and also different readings of that book, filtered through resistance studies. So our view is not exactly the kind of dogmatic understanding, but, that's for space-time reasons, we'll just go straight to it. Michael Desserteau. So, we try to merge these two to understand this engagement with algorithms. On one side, you got strategic algorithmic agency now. On the other, you got tactical algorithmic agency. You got high availability on time, money, and expertise, so there's an imbalance in power in there. And on the other side, you got low to no availability of time, money, and expertise. And this is the continuum where we map the practices. Okay? And this is going to be populated with all the examples, and it is in the book. In fact, now you got the moral economies, and you have this, and it's kind of complexified, because then the user moral economy, the other one, and then complexify, look at this, through the strategic and tactical part. So according to this, we're able to map exactly all the platforms, all the specific practices of engagement, resistance to algorithms, so that we will situate along this line. Now I'm going to tell you about the practices, so don't worry too much about this, because what it is, when you see on them papers, okay, it all makes sense. And with this, we're able to map all of these, both in the realm of gig work, in the realm of influencers and cultural work, and in the agency of political activists. Okay, so far, method and a lot of theory. Let's dig a bit into the kind of empirical part a bit, so you can make sense of this, better. And just take a look at this meanwhile. So we got three realms, right? So I'm going to show you a bit, just for you to have an idea of how these dynamics somehow cross all the realms, to kind of confirm, in this case, the fact that these kind of algorithmic agency and resistance are mundane and pervasive in a way. So the gaming the boss part, where we had all that interviews around the world with gig workers and observation, kind of highlighted different kind of tactics, both individual and collective. And there are also papers that we've written specifically on that with part of the team, and so that are kind of more, maybe more helpful to get a sense of this realm. But just to give you an idea, so the individual tactics that we found out on how to game or to play, to appropriate the algorithms, there were so many, you know, from working for more than one platform, to refusing to follow the delivery route set by the platform, to a word in Chinese, the shuadan, thanks to my former PhD Zizeng, because without him there would be no research in China, and especially in WeChat. Linguistic barriers are things. I mean, between me and Tiziano, we got like four languages, but you know, to be able to go there, it's unbelievable, because some of the best and most interesting practices were out of China and India, especially. A verb that means to artificially create fake odors. Then refusal of incomic odors, diaries of technologies of the self that were used to then creation of multiple account, stealing orders, delivery outside the platform, automating shift books through bots and other kind of devices. Then collective tactics. You would have heard about solidarity logout, where workers collectively log out of the platforms to obtain better fare and then reconnect together. Coordinated rejection of orders, again, this is a collective tactic. Mutual exchange of working hours, solidarity tactic. Sabotage, classic, applied to the gig economy. Contesting platform affordances. You see like this map of a lot of things that can be done to, you know, and are done in a kind of daily basis to resist algorithm. And of course, how do we know that? Well, we know that through the interviews, but also because we integrated screenshot during from workers obtained through the field workers. So that was one of the best kind of, say, fieldwork device that were used to kind of understand how exactly the platforms were doing, and what exactly workers were doing, you know. So we describe in detail how exactly this alliance between workers and between people and the algorithm worked in a way that is not frictionless, at all. It's really, really full of friction, small resistant act of unpacking the algorithm, and so on and so forth. This has been done in many cases. So we got the classic. Carolina will laugh a bit with this. So we got, besides we got the Tuscany kind of riders on that, talking with mutual exchanging working hours through that. But we follow really similar kind of dynamics, okay? Then we look at private chat as infrastructure of learning and resistance and solidarity. And so we have a paper about that. It's called Cooperative Affordances, where we look at these spaces as, let's say, the learning environments that where workers can join and mutually support each other, because the official kind of platforms provided by, of course, by these platforms don't allow these kind of practices. In fact, discourage this kind of platform. And we call that cooperative affordances. Langdon Winner was another big inspiration for us. Traditional artifacts have politics, and food delivery apps have politics too, you know. So they try to discourage any interaction between workers, therefore food delivery apps designed to prevent them from even talking or learning. And so all of this happens within other kind of platforms, being WeChat, Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signals, from many different spaces, but not on the official spaces of the platform. If you want to know more about cooperative affordances, we got an open access, you know, specific paper on that. So that's the part of gig workers. So, you know, these kind of continuous both individual and collective practices of small gaming the algorithm. And we can bring this also to the realm of gaming culture. In the case of the gig workers, we dealt with the computational power of platforms to govern the performance of gig workers' bodies. In the field of cultural industry, the computational power serves to govern the performance of cultural workers in material creativity. which is expressed through the currency, of course, again, of visibility. The battleground where platforms and cultural workers confront each other is visibility, calculated, metrified, but also gamed and hacked in by the users. These gaming practices are everywhere. In the cultural industry, the discoverability, the visibility of platformized cultural items are qualities that are never completely determined by the platforms, but they are indeed the result of a continuous and dynamic contested contest. Visibility is a contested commodity. On one end, there is the power by the platforms. On the other side, there are all these multiple gaming tactics which can be found in any platform that we have analyzed. Dating apps, podcasting, music, and all of that. Classic example, I bring, Korean pop fans, gaming algorithm of Spotify, tech-savvy, incredible, sophisticated techniques from below, manifestation of what we call algorithmic tactical agency, which is not aligned with the moral economy of streaming platforms that in fact actively try to counteract or to forbid these kind of practices. A classic example that we do, we kind of follow a bit the evolution of how these platforms continuously try to resist this and kind of counteract, and how the response of Korean pop fans and K-pop fans react. So it's really interesting kind of example. Instagram, our analysis is also on Instagram engagement pods, so-called groups, so-called pods, which are grassroots communities, if you don't know that agree to mutually like, comment, or share, or otherwise engage with each other post, no matter the content, to boost their visibility, to really pump it up artificially. There are so many pods that we analyze. It's a fragile life, though, like a soap bubble, they define it, like the metaphor of a butterfly. They grow fast, just as quickly, boom, they burst. Like the cells, that's a Tiziano's metaphor, like the cells of a secret association. A life belt in the sea. This is what an interviewer told us, the moral economy of pods. We saw. It explained, for example, that his addiction to this kind of pod as follows. It's a really interesting piece. I don't say that relying on these groups becomes a drug, but they become the life belt in the middle of the sea. A user will always find it hard to abandon them unless they reaches very high audience numbers. There are even some users who reach 50,000 followers and are still inside it. He also specified that unwillingness to abandon a pod comes from the fear of not being able to provide the service for which a company or a brand contracted them. So users gather together to artificially boost and kind of write the algorithms in order to do that, especially kind of micro to meso kind of influencer, not just the big influencer. That's another story, okay? That's another dynamic altogether. But the many thousands of influencers that doesn't have the kind of top visibility, they use a lot these pods. The majority of those we commonly call influencers are not public figures that hold these enormous bargaining power, They're precarious workers, they're emerging cultural and creative industry, just like many trying to make ends meet, and they're doing that, they're doing another thing, they're trying to use what they have and kind of appropriate the algorithms for their own aims. And most pod participants share this morally alternative code, The code is made explicit by the rules set by each single pod, and which we also analyze, and establish what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what you can do, what you cannot, an alternative moral universe for the users of these pods. All right? A solidarity emerged from this among users. Again, similar dynamic to what we have seen in the first social realm. They call the entrepreneurial solidarity Soriano and Cabañez. And now we move to the realm of politics again. Politics is really similar dynamics to what we've seen there. And of course, also here, we look especially at what we call algorithmic activism, which is the realm of not institutional politics, but contentious politics. Of course, we engage with social movement studies and collective action studies and activism studies for that. This is a sort of the evolution of what I've been doing in the last years regarding the evolution of data politics, and we try to look at the typology of what we have seen in the field. Just briefly, we look at algorithms repertoire. No? A repertoire of contention is a classic concept of social movement studies. Our argument is that algorithms represent an addition to that kind of repertoire, just as that. And activists, they do it for three main reasons. To amplify their visibility. We're not the only one to say it. I mean, in my first book, I added already that, you know, when I encountered algorithm for the first time in 2000, actually was like already in 2012. And then other books have dealt on that. Specific political context, we can use them to multiply and amplify their voices. They can also amplify it negatively, associating some words to the visibility of someone to expose them, or hurting their public image, such as has been done with, this is an example of Trump, but there are so many that have been used, you know, also in a really racist, xenophobic kind of way. But then we also have evasion. So activists can use algorithm to bypass community guidelines and moderation of the platforms by using, for example, lexical variants. Famous anti-vaccination movement trying to spread anti-science propaganda about that, or other kind of movements such as the pro-eating disorder groups on Instagram that use tactics of so-called content moderation, circumvention, again, playing with the lexical variants of this. And it's, I want you to understand it, this is a continuous kind of battle between the platform kind of figuring out how to prevent this, the actors doing this, and other actors trying to counteract this because they're like on the other side of the political spectrum, okay? Far-right activists, of course, use dog whistling in relation to algorithms as well to spread hate, racist, xenophobic content, but also vernacular Twitter language that we find out. In the case of Italy especially, we find that all the far right was using tactics of algorithmic evasion to actually smear other people and try to kind of prevent them from talking online, especially on Twitter. This is a tweet of a lexical variant or ways so not to be caught by the platform. And the finally one is hijacking. So amplification, evasion, hijacking. Hijacking is usually done on Twitter hashtag and K-pop fandoms are exactly the most sophisticated kind of groups to have done it. You will remember the Smurf defund the police kind of inserting humor and this kind of noise within the conversation. But also, I mean, Beverly, there's just the cops playing music that is copyrighted so that when they're being filmed by activists that want to hold them accountable, the algorithm immediately recognizes that this is a pop song that cannot go on YouTube or on Instagram and then just ban it. So they cannot, so instead of saying, don't record me, that they cannot do because of the amendment, they just play whatever kind of Taylor Swift song. It blocks the streaming immediately and they walk away. That for me is a kind of a surrealist, kind of David Lynch image of something going on. So you have this video of police officers getting the Beyonce song, just doing like that, not going there and just walking away. Really surreal algorithmic politics image. To wrap up, will these outsmart and pose an existential threat to humans? We don't think so. We try to complexify this apocalyptic dystopian narrative in many ways. The really takeaway for us is that where there is power, there is always a part of humanity that rises up. This kind of power is a daily kind of resistance, is a mundane kind of resistance, is banal, is spread everywhere, it's happening around every kind of social sphere that there is around. This is why we are inspired by movie that, of course, kind of build the narrative of the book in a way. But also at the same time, algorithmic agency that we have seen these practices is rarely exercised in solitude. Cooperation is the word, many times. So solidarity is a word that have emerged, is a concept that has emerged a lot. There is no real change here beyond, we don't want to romanticize this. Real change happens collectively and structurally. So what we have seen is that is exactly when they get together and they log off, or they push together, they unionize together, then these things can actually, they have some kind of clash consciousness that they can make a difference. And so I will finish with this because I think that, and boom, this is where all the, and I will leave it for the discussion, this is where all our pieces somehow come together. But again, this is a collective effort. But without romanticizing, though, I would like to say that we cannot ignore it. It's everywhere as well. Where there's power, there's algorithmic resistance, and it's up to us, in a way, to see if this resistance can actually thrive and become something to change society. But it's a resistance that is not revolutionary. Most of the time, it's a resistance that challenge the system here and now in the everyday. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I look forward to some feedback on this. Thanks a lot.